For more than 1,000 years, the sermons of Nahjul-Balagha have quickened heartbeats, sublimated emotions, and brought tears. Moral and spiritual teachings constitute the greater part of Nahjul-Balagha. These teachings are not just words that has the power to transform hearts and souls.
For more than 1,000 years, these sermons have played an influential role, serving as a matchless sermon shall continue to exercise their original power.
Aside from the moral teachings of the Holy Quran and the sayings of the Holy Prophet, the teachings of Nahjul-Balagha are without a match. They stand alone. They are unique.
These works are masterpieces, rich with spiritual and moral teachings. From poets like Sayyid and Rumi, Nahjul-Balagha is something more.
In Persian, the Gulistan and the Bustan of Sayyid serve as unusually attractive. They have inspired millions.
Nahjul-Balagha's prose is a unique divine light, born of lived experience, delivering unparalleled power in the midst of political turmoil. The teachings of Nahjul-Balagha are not mere words. They seek to transform you. The goal is to draw closer to Allah.
Nahjul-Balagha's teachings are not confined to any sect, promoting justice, compassion, and humility. It is a book that belongs to all humanity.
Moral and spiritual teachings constitute the greater part of Nahjul-Balagha, making up almost half of the book. More than anything else, the fame of Nahjul-Balagha is due to the sermons, exhortations, and aphorisms on ethical and moral subjects. Aside from the moral teachings of the Holy Quran and a number of the sermons and sayings of the Holy Prophet, which are to be considered the source and antecedent of Nahjul-Balagha, the teachings of Nahjul-Balagha are without a match in the Arabic and Persian languages. For more than 1,000 years, these sermons have played an influential role, serving as a matchless source of inspiration, yet retaining their original power to quicken the heartbeat, to sublimate emotions, and to bring tears to the eyes. It seems that as long as there remains any trace of humanity in the world, these sermons shall continue to exercise their original power and influence. The literature of Arabic and Persian is replete with works containing spiritual and moral teachings of the highest sublimity and elegance, though mainly in the form of poetry. There is, for example, the famous Qasida by Abul-Fath al-Busti, which begins with the verse saying, "Worldly profit and achievement is loss, and the gain unmarked by the seal of pure goodness." There is also the eulogizing Qasida by Abul-Hasan al-Tihami, which he wrote on the early death of his youthful son. It begins with these lines, "The law of fate governs the destiny of creation, and this world is not a place to settle in." Every one of these works is an everlasting masterpiece of its kind, and shines like a star on the horizons of the Arabic literature of the Islamic era, never to lose its freshness and charm. In Persian, the Gulistan and the Bustan of Sayyid and his qasides serve as unusually attractive and effective means of moral advice, and are masterpieces of their own kind. To give some examples, here are some famous verses of the Gulistan which start with, "Every breath is a fraction of life gone, and when I see, not much of it does remain." Or in another qasida where he says the following, "O people, the world is not a place for leisure and repose. To a wise man, it is not worth the effort to possess." Or at another place, he says the following, "The world on water and life on wind do rest. Salute the brave ones who to them do not tie their hearts." And he also says the following, "Time and fortune are subject to endless change. The wise man doesn't attach his heart to the world." Sayyid's Bustan is full of profound and glowing spiritual pieces of advice, and perhaps it is at its best in the 9th chapter on penitence and the right way. The same is true of some portions of the Mathnawi of Rumi, and works of all other Persian poets, from whom we shall not further quote any examples. In Islamic literature, including the Arabic and the Persian, there exist excellent examples of spiritual counsels and aphorisms. This Islamic literary genre is not confined to these two languages, but is also found in Turkish, Urdu, and other languages. A characteristic spirit pervades all of them. Anyone familiar with the Holy Quran, the sayings of the Holy Prophet, of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali, of the other Imams, and of Muslim saints of the first rank, can observe a characteristic spirit pervading all Persian literature containing spiritual counsel, which represents the spirit of Islam embodied in the Persian language and embellished with its charm and sweetness. If an expert or a group of experts in Arabic and Persian literature, acquainted with the works in all other languages that reflect the spirit of Islam, were to collect the masterpieces in the field of spiritual counsel, the extraordinary richness and maturity of the Islamic culture in this field will be revealed. It is strange that, as far as the works on spiritual counsel are concerned, the Persian genius has mostly expressed itself in poetry. There is no such work of eminence in prose. All that exists of it in prose is in the form of short sayings, like the prose writings of the Gulistan, a part of which consists of spiritual counsels and is in itself a masterpiece, or the sayings ascribed to Khawaja Abdullah al-Ansari. Of course, my own knowledge is inadequate, but as far as I know, there does not exist in Persian prose any remarkable work, except for short sayings, not even a passage which is long enough to be counted as a short discourse, especially a discourse which was originally delivered extempore, and later collected and recorded in writing. There are discourses which have been related from Rumi or Sadi, meant as oral moral advice to their followers. They also by no means possess the brilliance and charm of the poetic works of those masters, and definitely are not worth being compared with the discourses of Nahjul-Balagha. The same can be said about the writings which have reached us in the form of a treatise or letter, such as the Nasihat al-Muluk by Abu Hamid Muhammad al-Ghazali, the Taziyane-e-Suluk by Ahmad al-Ghazali, the latter being an elaborate epistle addressed to his follower and pupil, Ayn al-Qudad al-Hamadani.
The turning point in understanding the unique value of Nahjul-Balagha's moral teachings comes when we recognize that they were not composed in quiet solitude, but delivered extempore in the midst of political turmoil and personal hardship. Imam Ali was not a philosopher who had the luxury of retreating from the world to contemplate morality. He was a ruler, a commander, a judge, and a spiritual guide, engaged in the most demanding affairs of state. Yet his moral teachings possess a depth, a power, and a sublimity that surpass even the most carefully crafted works of the great poets and sages. This is not merely a literary achievement, it is a spiritual miracle. The sermons of Nahjul-Balagha are not academic exercises, they are born of lived experience. They emerge from the crucible of suffering, sacrifice, and struggle. Imam Ali did not speak about patience from a comfortable distance, he lived it. He did not teach about forgiveness while holding a grudge, he embodied it. He did not advise about justice while ignoring it, he established it. His words carry the weight of authenticity because they are not abstract theories but practical wisdom tested in the fires of life. This is what gives them their unparalleled power to move hearts and to transform lives. When we compare Nahjul-Balagha to other works of moral counsel, the difference is stark. The poets and sages of Arabic and Persian literature produced masterpieces of exquisite beauty. Their verses are elegant, profound, and moving. But they are, for the most part, works of art, crafted and polished in the quiet of the study. They lack the urgency, the immediacy, the raw power of Imam Ali's words. His sermons are not performances, they are cries from the heart, calls to action, warnings of consequences, and promises of divine mercy. They are the words of a man who has seen the depths of human depravity and the heights of divine grace. Another turning point is the realization that Nahjul-Balagha's moral teachings are not confined to any particular school of thought or sect. They are universal in their appeal. They speak to the heart of every human being, regardless of religion, culture, or background. The values they promote, justice, compassion, humility, patience, forgiveness, gratitude, are values that are recognized by all humanity. This is why Nahjul-Balagha has been embraced by people of diverse faiths and traditions. It is a book that belongs to all of humanity.
The moral teachings of Nahjul-Balagha are also distinguished by their comprehensiveness. They do not focus on one aspect of human life to the exclusion of others. They address the individual and the community, the inner life and the outer life, the spiritual and the material, the temporal and the eternal. They provide guidance for every situation and every stage of life. They are a complete system of moral education, not a collection of scattered maxims. The turning point of the comparison with other literary works reveals that while Arabic and Persian literature is rich in moral poetry, it is strikingly deficient in prose of comparable quality. The great poets excelled in verse, but their prose works, when they exist, are far less remarkable. Nahjul-Balagha, on the other hand, is a prose masterpiece that surpasses even the finest poetry. It is a work that combines the eloquence of poetry with the clarity of prose, the depth of philosophy with the warmth of spirituality, the rigor of logic with the beauty of language. It is also worth noting that the moral teachings of Nahjul-Balagha are not limited to abstract exhortations. They are often embedded in stories, parables, and vivid descriptions that make them accessible and memorable. Imam Ali does not simply tell people to be patient. He describes the patient person as one who endures hardship without complaint and who trusts in Allah's wisdom. He does not simply tell people to be just. He shows them what justice looks like in practice and warns them of the consequences of injustice. He does not simply tell people to be humble. He gives them examples of humility and points out the dangers of pride. The turning point of the uniqueness of Nahjul-Balagha's moral teachings is that they are not just words to be read and forgotten. They are words that demand a response. They are calls to action. They challenge the reader to examine their own life, to confront their own shortcomings, and to strive for moral and spiritual excellence. They are not content to leave the reader as they found them. They seek to transform them.
The moral teachings of Nahjul-Balagha also emphasize the importance of intention. Imam Ali teaches that actions are not judged by their outward form, but by the intention behind them. A person may perform acts of worship, charity, and service, but if they are done for show or for personal gain, they are worthless in the sight of Allah. The heart must be pure, the intention sincere, and the motive the pleasure of Allah. This emphasis on intention elevates even the most ordinary actions to the level of worship. Another turning point is the recognition that the moral teachings of Nahjul-Balagha are not a dry code of conduct, but a living relationship with Allah. Imam Ali teaches that the goal of morality is not just to be a good person, but to draw closer to Allah. The virtues he promotes are not just social values, but spiritual paths to divine proximity. Patience, gratitude, compassion, and forgiveness are not just ways of interacting with others, but ways of connecting with Allah. They are the means by which the soul is purified and the heart is illuminated. The enduring power of Nahjul-Balagha's moral teachings lies in their ability to speak to the deepest longings of the human heart. They address the questions that every human being asks. What is the purpose of life? How should I live? What happens after death? How can I find peace and happiness? Imam Ali does not give easy answers to these questions. He invites the reader to reflect, to struggle, and to seek. He points the way, but he leaves the journey to the individual. The turning point of the spiritual depth of Nahjul-Balagha reveals that its teachings are not just for the scholar or the saint. They are for everyone. They are accessible to the ordinary person who may not be trained in philosophy or theology. They speak in the language of the heart and are understood by the soul. This accessibility, combined with their depth, is what makes them so powerful and so enduring. The legacy of Nahjul-Balagha's moral teachings is not confined to the past. They continue to inspire and guide people today. In a world that is increasingly disconnected from spiritual values, they offer a path back to meaning, purpose, and peace. They remind us of our true nature, our higher calling, and our ultimate destiny. They call us to rise above the trivial and the temporary and to focus on the eternal and the essential. May Allah grant us the wisdom to understand the moral teachings of Nahjul-Balagha and the strength to live by them. May He make us among those who are guided by their light and who inspire others by their example. May He bless Imam Ali and the al-Bayt and make us among those who follow their noble example. Ameen.